All right, we're looking at adding OUS, which is a suffix that changes a word into an adjective, into a describing word. So when you're teaching this, it's really important to start with that so students know that that OUS has got a purpose, it's a morpheme, and it does something to a word. And it's really important also to draw their attention to what it sounds like, because it has quite a consistent sound structure. So it's always a schwa and a s, so it's a us. So when they hear a word that ends in us, they need to think, is it an adjective? If it is, it's going to be spelled as O-U-S. So let's look at some examples. If we have words that end with a consonant, it's very easy. We just add the OUS. So if it's a whole word like wonder, danger, thunder, we add OUS. If it's a word like joy, we've got the OY. That's one unit together. So we just add the OUS. So that's very simple. Okay, and you'll be able to find some examples of those. Now, if we have a word like nervous, and we've got this E on the end, what do? We just get rid of it. Okay, so we just cross it off and it turns into nervous. The way to look at something like this is give them the word nervous, take off the OUS and look at what's left. And we know that we don't have a V at the end as a single V, so we never write, we would never write the word nervous like that. Okay, so if there's a V left on its own, we have to put that E in. Okay, so let's have a look at something else. If the word originally ended with a Y, so if we had envy, okay, when we're adding a suffix to a word that ends with a Y, and the suffix is a vowel suffix, so it begins with a vowel letter, except for I, because I and Y are quite happy together. So if it's O, or if the vowel suffix starts with an E, we need to do something with the Y. And what we do is we take it off and we replace it with the letter I. Okay, so that's quite simple. So you take that off and we replace it with the letter I. Again, what we can do is we can give the child the word envious, get them to take off the OUS, and we look at this and straight away this doesn't look right in terms of English orthography. We don't end words with the letter I. That's a general rule. There will be some exceptions that are borrowed from other languages, but we don't write NV. When we hear that E sound at the end of a word, it's never the letter I, okay? So on its own. So we know that it has to be the letter Y. Same with the word victorious. So the base word here is victory plus OUS, but we replace the Y with an I and then we add the OUS. Again, do it backwards, take victorious, take off the OUS, okay, victory, and we think of other words like happy, journey, not journey, things like silly, funny. When we hear that E sound at the end, it's not going to be a Y, so it's going to be the letter. It's not going to be letter I, sorry, it has to be the letter Y. Okay, so that's it. That's the rule. When you're adding it, replace the Y with an I. Now it gets a little bit more complicated. These words have got a base word. So when we're dealing with words like this, it's really important to, well, the easiest way, I guess, to deal with this is to look at the word just like we did before and take off the OUS and then have a think about what we need to do. So malicious. So we have to think about what malicious means. So it's when you do something with ill intent. So if we take off the OUS, what have we got? Now it's interesting. This I is not the same as the other I because it does not replace the Y. This is what we call a linking vowel. And very often we, in order to be able to pronounce a word or for pronunciation and spelling consistency, we have to add something in to be able to glue that suffix on. And quite often it's the letter I. And in this word, the reason why it's the letter I is because we have to maintain this soft sound. So we know the rule is we just take off bossy E's. E's are so busy and bossy, we give them a break. When the suffix comes along, we go and have a break. The letter I comes to do the job. So we have to have the I there. If we write malicious like this, that is malicious, okay? Because we don't have anything making that soft sound. So we have to have an I in there. So what we would do is we would say, okay, well, let's take off the OUS. This I is just a linking I. The root word is malice, and we need to explain what that means. These are quite difficult conceptually, these words. So these are quite advanced words. So malice is, something when you really have ill intent towards someone, or some is related to, bad behavior, evil. And to make that sound at the end, we've got to have an E. Okay, so now we can go back. We're adding a suffix. We have to take off that E. We need an I to make that sound soft and add OUS. So please don't teach IOUS as a unit, okay? That gets too confusing and it doesn't allow children to think about the root and how words are constructed. And if we teach them that it's IOUS, then it doesn't fit with the pattern of wondrous, for example, or nervous, okay? So the actual suffix is OUS, but we have a linking vowel. So gracious is related to grace, okay? And we need to explicitly tell the children this. So we take off the OUS. This is a linking I. It's actually grace plus OUS. So you can either go from the whole word gracious and break it apart, or you could say to them, gracious is grace plus OUS. And what do we need to do to turn it into gracious? Well, we know we need to get rid of the E. So we'll do that, but we need something to make that sh sound, to make it not a k sound. What letter does that? It's the letter I, and then we can add the OUS. So that's how we need to talk through these words. So let's do another example here with vicious. So the base word here is vice. So a vice is like a bad quality, and someone who is vicious obviously has bad qualities. So we might start with vice plus OUS. We know we have to take off the E, so it becomes that. We have to make sure we maintain that soft sound, so we add an I, OUS. Okay, you can see that it's a talking process. This is not about memorizing rules off by heart. Devious is a little bit easier because that I, we can hear it. It's a devious, okay? Now, to remember that it's not an E, we could look at all of the other words and say, well, in all of these words, we don't have the letter E, but we can also talk about the fact that it's related to something like deviant. That would probably be the best example, okay? But it's a pretty consistent pattern that we see that we don't have the letter E, it's the letter I before the OUS. So by looking at banks of words that follow the same kind of pattern, we start to build up that understanding. So I'm going to get rid of that because we've talked about that. Delicious is a little bit trickier because that root word is not very clear. But if we teach words like malicious and gracious and vicious, where it's easier to see the root, then we say, well, this is the same pattern. We have to keep that sh sound in there, so it has to be a C-I-O-U-S. Same with fabulous. It's a very difficult root to talk about with the children, because if you take off the OUS, what does fabule mean? but it's easy to sound out. So it's f, at, b, u, u, s. And we know that when we hear the s, then that's the OUS suffix. Okay, so this is that very intimate relationship between sound, meaning, and spelling. We always have to be going between those three things. So, in summary, we get rid of final silent E's. Okay, we get rid of those. We replace a single Y with an I. We need to add a connecting I to maintain soft C's and G sounds. And we need to look at what the root might be to help us spell. Okay, so you can see that the way to learn this is not by learning lists of rules, but by actually analysing the words and trying to group words and find the patterns. So good luck teaching your excellent adjective words.